What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 35 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. My name is Matt Cothran. I am still your host, and today is Thursday, May 5th, 2022. And ladies and gentlemen, Sailor Jerry Spice Drum is still made the old school way, 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. Happy Cinco de Mayo, everybody. I hope everybody is feeling good out there. If you're listening on Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast, and if you're watching on YouTube or however else you may access the Sailor Jerry podcast, I just want to say, what's up? I hope you're doing good. And I got to keep this monologue short and sweet today because Cinco de Mayo is a busy time for your boy. We have a Mariachi El Bronx show tonight at the Belly Up in Solana Beach, California, aka Selena Beach, California. Rest in peace, Selena. And after that, we got a gig in Santa Ana, California this Saturday, playing our second record front to back. And then to round out the Cinco de Mayo weekend, ladies and gentlemen, we are going up to Pioneer Town and playing one of the coolest spots in all of California, if not the world, and that is Pappy and Harriet's, a very small little tucked away bar that's in the middle of Pioneer Town out in Joshua Tree in the deserts of California. So busy weekend for your boy. I'm very stoked to be back playing music. I'm also very stoked for the guest that we have on this week's podcast. So without further ado, it's time for episode 35. Jared Swilley is the bass player and co-founder of infamous Atlanta garage rockers, the Black Lips. In this episode, we take a look back at over 20 years of notorious musical chaos. And Jared relives the wild ride one record at a time. From getting kicked out of high school and tragically losing a bandmate just days before their first tour, to signing with Vice Records, recording with Mark Ronson, and playing shows in India and the Middle East. Plus, we got some classic war stories from Jared, secrets to the band's success, and some hazy details on a brand new record due out later this year. This is an awesome episode, and it was really cool to catch up with Jared and talk music after our paths and our bands have been crisscrossing for decades. Sit back, relax, pour yourself some Sailor Jerry, and let's go.
Keyhole at the dolly, seeing the unknown. Well, it might have been a molly, could my mind be blown? Take the escalator to the next floor. Such a strong sedator, now I can't find the door. You turn around and you don't know where you've been. Look up at the glass dome and the room begins to spin. Let's go out and find the ocean, 'cause I think we need to swim. Turn around, start it over, let's begin.
Yo.
Hey, what's going on?
What up, Jared? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the Sailor Jerry podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks
it's
for
good to
asking me.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you. It's been a long time since we crossed paths, so it's cool to
Yeah.
touch base, man. I appreciate it. You guys are getting ready to go over to Europe soon, right?
Yeah, day after tomorrow, flying to Belgium just for the weekend, and then we have a longer one, all of June over in Europe. So finally getting back out there.
Hell yeah! How's the vibe in the band?
Good. We finished. We did a 3-month tour. It was our first tour since COVID, the end of last year, and then in January we stayed over there and recorded a new record in Paris.
Oh,
So
hell yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it was awesome to, I'm sure, yeah, everyone knows it's like 2 years of doing nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, I was doing stuff, just not music stuff.
So the new record's done.
Yeah, all done.
When's it? When are you looking to launch it?
I should know this. I've been like either September or October. We have like a release date and all that, but it's in the fall.
Hell yeah.
Everything's done.
Awesome, man. That's cool. Excited to hear it. What was the when you went back on the first tour since COVID, did it feel, I mean, you guys, you have been touring machines, since the band started. So obviously having that time where traveling and playing live was taken away from you for, reasons that were beyond your control. COVID was crazy for everybody, but it sucked for sure. What was it like coming back, into playing gigs again? Did you notice anything different? Did it feel weird? Did it feel the same? What was it like for you?
I mean, like we had to, I think it's the first time in our music career that we had to practice. We'd never practiced before just because we've always been on tour. So there's never any need to. Like, I mean, yeah, we all went last summer. Oakley, our drummer, has like, he's got a big place in the Catskills, and he spent the quarantine building. He has a barn on his property, and he converted it into a studio. So we all went up there to like write and record, because man, I didn't play music over the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like at all. Like I got kind of pessimistic for a minute, and I was like kind of like, well, that was a good run, but like this was the last thing that'll come back. I don't know. So I had to relearn how to play almost. I mean, it came back pretty fast, but that was like the main thing. It was like, it felt weird getting, I just felt a little off, because I've done it almost every day since I was like 16 years old. That's when I started touring. We didn't stop till the pandemic. So.
Yeah, man, it was crazy for everybody, but I think a lot of punk rock bands who toured a lot, or any type of band that toured a lot, it fucked you up a little bit in the head. It was a weird thing to kind of digest, but I'm glad you guys are back in the mix, man. I'm glad you guys are touring again, and I'm glad you got a new record in the can. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I'm happy to be back on it. But it was like, I almost like kind of didn't mind. In retrospect, like, I kind of needed a break. It was, do other stuff. And I was kind of glad that, like, I was able to do other things. I was able to fall into, like, I was kind of all over the place, but.
Did you ever think like, do I want to go back into it?
Well, no, there's no question of that. I was like, if it comes back, but it was like, I'll be fine if not. I was working in a hardware store in Long Island for a while, and then I went to rehab. Then I was like building houses in like Southwest Texas for a while. So I was kind of like honed some different skills, like some carpentry stuff. So that was cool.
Nice, man. Nice. And I was looking at, obviously the discography of the band. And one thing I didn't really realize was that the first release came out in 2002. And that's 20 years as a band this year, man. That's pretty fucking incredible.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I mean, that was the first record came out then, but I think we started like in 1999. I was in 9th grade when we played our first show as Black Lips.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back all the way to the beginning then. So let's do it. So where'd you grow up?
Dunwoody, Georgia. It's like right periphery of Atlanta. It's kind of like, now the city's grown so much, it's basically in the city, but back then it wasn't.
Awesome. And that was like what, 82, 83?
I was born in 83.
Nice. So what was growing up like for you?
I mean, it was kind of cool, kind of different. Like, I come from a family of all preachers. Like my dad, my grandpa, my dad, all my uncles, one of my brothers. So I grew up in like Pentecostal church, and it was like, I mean, I grew up in an all black church. Like, that's my whole family's. I mean, the preacher's obviously white, my dad, but it was that kind of world, like speaking in tongues, and music was cool. Like it kind of started to suck like in the 90s once their keyboards kind of changed and it turned into like more
Yeah.
mega churchy stuff. But I remember when I was a kid when it was just like choir and drums, it was pretty cool.
Is that the kind of first experience you had with music, was church music?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even like my grandma she played the Hammond on stage, like leading praise and worship. My dad led, yeah, everyone's musical in the family, but it's all like church stuff, which is, I mean, I always say kind of too, like I'm kind of in the family business, we're all on stage and
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Did you have to grow up under kind of like, specific religious guidelines or anything?
not really. Like I was a hellion, and I guess like preachers' kids kind of have a reputation for being real wild, but I mean, they're pretty like their kind of churches are pretty liberal. It's not super strict. I mean, my dad, he kind of lost his church. He came out of the closet a decade ago. Now he does a different kind of church. So he's always been, all their churches, like they never believed in like hell and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
it was kind of like, I always saw it like in a positive thing. I was never really rebelling against the church. It was kind of a positive experience for me.
No, that's cool because I think what a lot of people end up rebelling against is the crazy like judgment and heaven, hell, and who's better than who and all that stuff. So it seems like if that's not really something that's being forced on you, and you're in a spot where your family's there, there's music going on, it
Yeah,
doesn't seem like
it was a good vibe. Like it wasn't, I know, I could have grown up in one of those churches where it was, super strict. This one it was cool. It was like, I always saw it as like like positive force, and no one
hell
ever
yeah.
turned it on me.
So how did your own kind of path with music start? Like when did you pick up an instrument? When did you kind of start maybe tuning in on music a little bit more?
I guess because like in like elementary, I was always kind of into music, but when I started skateboarding, it was, we had like everyone would skate at like the shopping center, like the local one there. So you go to a skate session. It was mostly like I would hang out with older kids, and they were into. I kind of saw when I was younger. I saw like kids at the mall and stuff with mohawks and leather jackets and stuff, and like smoking. And I just remember from a young age being like, oh, I want that to be my thing, because I wasn't super into sports that much. So yeah, I just thought skateboarding looked cool, and like from watching MTV and stuff. So I started hanging out with older kids and got into bands that they liked, and they
What were some of those bands?
like the earliest bands. I mean, Ramones
Yeah.
for sure, but like the Germs was like a big game changer. This one of our friends, my friend's older brothers, like luckily they had really good taste in music, so it was like the earliest bands I really liked, as far as after like the Beatles and what my dad listened to, it was like Germs, Dead Boys, Ramones. Actually, there was a lot of kids listening to that like Lookout Records stuff. Like everyone listened.
Oh
to
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Screeching Weasel was everywhere, and the Queers. That was like. But yeah, I got really into, like, I loved the Sex Pistols just because, and the Damned. So that was kind of, Black Flag was big. Yeah, kind of, I think pretty much every like kid that got into punk listened to all those Misfits.
Yeah, man, Screeching Weasel's an interesting one too, because they did have a good little, I think, run in everybody's ears for a little bit. But I think
Yeah,
Ben Weasel is just kind of, he's such a screwball, so I don't think you really.
Yeah, I don't really know much. I guess, yeah, I heard I actually never got to see them live or anything, but when I hear some of those records, it definitely reminds me of like summer of 7th grade.
Yeah, for sure. Did you go to a lot of shows as a kid?
Yeah, a lot. We had some cool, like a lot of cool all ages venues, like growing up. Like even I think they might, like some of the clubs might have been like Christian clubs, but they would have like high school bands could play there. And then there was some, like we played our first show at this punk club in Atlanta called the 513 Club. And I think the first show I played there, I was like 14.
Did you have to wait outside, or did they not care? They just let you in?
They didn't. Yeah, that place was like a free for all. The first show we played there, my mom drove us down, and now that whole area, like most cities, like, you know, it's been heavily gentrified, but back then it was, you know, it was like a wasteland. I made my mom drop us off at the, you know, top of the street, and we just, I don't even know how we had, I think bands just shared everything there because we just, you know, showed up with our guitars with no cases and like no cables or anything. It was pretty wild, like, you know, just tons of fights. There's tons. I remember there being lots of skinheads at shows back then that did not like, well, they didn't like anybody. So that was always like, remember getting beat up a lot. We were pretty punchable back then. We were pretty obnoxious. So it was like, that didn't help.
How did you go from skating, hanging out, you know, listening to music, going to shows to picking up an instrument?
Well, I guess like the big game changer was like, I liked, you know, punk stuff. When I saw like Germs on Decline of Western Civilization, I was like, man, that's it. I got to do that. But we didn't really play like that. We were more into like rock and roll. So when we heard, I think, a Link Ray record, and that was like the game changer. And that's kind of what we learned to play guitar along to, just like open chord stuff. And we kind of like put the band together before we could play music. We had the Look Down. We were called the Renegades, and heavily influenced by like, they made us read The Outsiders in high school. So that was kind of like, so we all wore like jean jacket and like, you know, like kind of the greaser thing. So we had like spray painted Renegades on the back of our jackets. Our whole look was, I don't think we did it, but our look was supposed to be, we were all going to grow rat tails and like cut holes in the, like, because we wore our collars up and cut holes in the back of the collar for our rat tails to go through. And we all wore like American flag Chuck Taylors. And so we had the Renegades, and then there was like all the girls we hung out with, they had a band called the Renegettes, and they wore pink jean jackets.
Oh, it was the whole thing then.
Yeah, it was like, and then like the first show we booked, we didn't know how to play. We just kind of like, we had to look down, and, you know, it was more like performance art kind of.
Who wrote the first song?
We were writing together. Actually, the first song we ever wrote was on our first single. And I remember being on the phone. It's back when you do like three-way calling, but you only had one line at the house. We're like, all right, we gotta skip school. We're gonna skip school tomorrow to write this song. And then my mom's on the phone. She's like hell you are. Still skip school. And I remember we went and wrote like our first single, and we kind of put those guys. I think we covered Gimme Gimme Gimme, that Black Flag song, our first show. Just trying to do like, we were listening to a lot of Link Ray and like them, like Van Morrison and early Stones, and just kind of, you know, tried to do like bluesy stuff.
It's cool, man, because you guys have always had you know, you guys have always had style, and you've always had influences that I think a lot of people you know, are jealous of, maybe a little bit. I mean, you guys just kind of always had a good swagger, like even from the beginning, you know, and it's really cool. And I think a lot of that has to do with what you're saying, your influences, and not necessarily sticking to just punk rock or things like that. I think also a little bit has to do with, you know, where you're from too. You know, I think the South has a little bit of that in the water too. So it's really cool how your sound kind of came about.
I could have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure the single came out in 99, because the first pressing of that are like 90% destroyed. Because when we used to tour, you know, most of them were just broken, like on the floor of our van.
Do you have one? Do you still have one?
No, I don't have any records right now. FedEx lost my entire record collection moving back to Atlanta.
What?
Yeah. I'm trying to let it go and just be like cool about it. You know, I did what I could do about it, like file the.
Oh no, dude, that's a nightmare.
But yeah, I know some people have those singles. I mean, I don't know about now, but I remember they used to sell on eBay for a lot. But seriously, the first run of those records, we would like, no one liked us. So our first tours, we'd walk around and just give them out to people. And then like when we first started touring, we didn't have guitar cases. We'd like, it was a mess. Like we didn't put our records in boxes. We didn't have t-shirts till like 7 years in as a band. Like they would just be on the floor, just water damage or like, you know.
Oh man, that's amazing. I wanted to talk just for a second about you know, early on in the band career, you guys, you know, you lost a member. Ben, was it Eberbaugh?
Eberbaugh, yeah.
Eberbaugh. Obviously earth shattering news. How did you guys cope with that? As young kids, as a band, and can you tell us a little bit about Ben and what he was like?
Ben was he was awesome. He was a few grades older than us. He was one of the kids I met, skating, like the older kids that would make us tapes and stuff. And back then, like 1 year is a big difference between kids. And
Yeah.
he was about 4 years older than us. So it was like, talking to kids that old in high school was like talking to a famous person or something. It was like he was a senior when we were freshmen. So it was like, and he looked older. So he was like the guy that could buy everyone beer, and he had a car, and he knew how to play guitar really well. He was kind of like, high school level celebrity. And then he started coming over to our practices to hang out. And then like, he knew how to guitar solo. And I remember when he said he wanted to join the band, it was like, that would be like Keith Richards wanted to join your band, like, when you were a freshman. But yeah, he was super cool. And he was like total sweetheart. He was also really big. He was a jock before he was a punk. I think he was on the football team. So like when no one picked on us when he was like hanging around, because he was a big guy and he knew all actually the jocks kind of liked us. We were kind of like cool with everyone at school. We invited us to parties and so we were fun guys to have around. But no, Ben was great. And it was Devin, like we were set to go on our first ever tour, and our album had just come out. Like we had, before he died, we had just gotten the like physical copies of the first vinyl, just like a few days before. I think we were supposed to go out like 2 days later, and I was walking to work one day, and my girlfriend at the times, we all worked at this diner, and I worked the 6 a.m. thing. So it was like 5 in the morning. I was walking to work, and my ex-girlfriend's mom like drove by me and was like, pick me up. I was like, well, that's weird. What's she doing up at this hour? Like, yeah, and got me in the car and told me, and then I didn't believe her. So I made her take me to the diner and asked our boss. And yeah, he was the first person I ever knew that died, like besides like my great grandparents. So it was, but yeah, his family is really great. And at that stage in your life, you have so many friends. There's a big community of us. And so, your whole high school's there, all at his parents' house. And we didn't know what to do. And they had always been really supportive of the band and everything. His dad's is a musician. And they just told us to go on the tour. And so all these people had come back from like college and stuff, and we're all in town and needed to get home. So like New York and Chicago and stuff. So like 4 vans of people like us. And then like, basically we just had this caravan of like 40 people that went on tour with us on our first tour. That band, the Carbonas, was with us. So we just all caravanned and we're dropping people off on the way. And it was, I mean, as far as like a grieving process, it was just like one long funeral procession. It was
Yeah.
I think it was a cool way to do it. And we got his parents' blessing, because we were like, well, do we just stop now? And we did the tour as a 3-piece, and then Ben's best friend joined the band on the way, like on that tour. We were driving him back to New York. So it was, that was now it seems like I know someone that dies like every month or two, but back then it's like, I think I was 17 when he passed away. So that's maybe 18.
Looking back, do you think, times of struggle, can really bring obviously friends together, bands together. Do you think, you guys have been through a lot over the years, and, you do have an indestructible quality to you. Do you think that having to go through something like that so early on in the band and getting, the vote from his parents to, go ahead, go do this tour, that's what he would have wanted you guys to do, like coming back from that tour, was there kind of a feeling of like, okay, fuck, we just got through a really crazy event and we're back, we're still a band, we're doing this, we're going to push forward? Do you think that had, an impact on you as far as like the ability to just, being in a band's not easy. The ability to just kind of get through tough shit and not like fold, when tragedy strikes.
Yeah, I mean that definitely. I mean, it was a combination of like we all. I mean, even growing up, like the high school and the neighborhood I grew up in, like was real close knit. Like I'm still good friends with most of those people. So there was that like camaraderie and all like around Ben's death, but also like you know, I guess I have to preface this with being like, yeah, we grew up, you know, I'm lucky as shit, the way we grew up, like middle class, pretty privileged, but I did awful in school. Like my prospects did not look good. I probably could have tried and done well doing something else, but I made a decision real early on. Like I got kicked out of school when I was 10th grade. We made a decision very young, like this is what we're going to do. Like no matter what. So like we kind of went into it with that mentality. And I guess like starting so young. I mean, this is all I've ever done. Like I went from playing like T-ball to going on tour pretty much. So there's that. And it's like, and it is pretty hard. We had like the first, like we call them the bad old days, even though they were super fun. But like, yeah, like our tour, like it took us a long time to turn a profit, like 10 years. we were really stubborn about it and just like would not quit. Like like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But like things still kind of started getting a little like the bar was set really low. Like if we made $100, that's like huge. And then, then someone wants to put out your record and then like you get your first hotel room. Someone buys you dinner. Like we were like, inching our way up. So
When did you guys first go overseas? Did you go overseas on like the first couple records?
yeah, like 2005, we did our first European tour. And that was like, I mean, that was everything.
Yeah.
Because, in the US, we were like, dude, we used to we'd eat at homeless shelters in every city, which is not a bad deal. All you have to do is eat all your food and not cuss, like stand for the prayer. But you get to Europe and you're used to sleeping on floors, and we slept in the van a lot. And you have a place to stay every night. People feed you. Like Europe was just, I was like, holy shit! Like if this is what being in a band's like, yeah, I didn't want to leave the first. We actually almost didn't. It was right around when we first started going there. Might have been the second tour we went over. We almost stayed because like it was during the second Iraq war, and while we were there, we already didn't want to go home just because it seemed so awesome. And then they started talking about reinstating the draft, and we were all 18,
Nope.
not in college. So we were like, fuck, we might just stay here. I remember our tour manager, like when they were talking about it on the news, he like kicked open our door. This Spanish guy, he's like, "You boys are going to Iraq." But yeah, Europe was cool. I was not used to being treated like that, and they still treat you a little better over there than they do here.
Yeah, the first time going over there, man, is always something special. I mean, it really just anytime you get out of your immediate kind of like, nest as whether it's your hometown or whatever. Like the first time I went to the East Coast with the band, and then obviously overseas, it's just like, man, my whole life changed. You know what I mean? It was just the coolest experience, dude.
Yeah, there's this, and I mean, like the first time I had that, like on a US tour, I remember the first time we drove out west, like I'd never seen the desert. So I was like, whoa, it looks like just that's like my favorite thing about tours, like seeing new stuff. And then, Europe, you feel like you made it. Ben used to always joke, like, before he passed away, he'd be like, yeah, I can't wait till we get to the point where my parents like, hey, Ben, can you come over for dinner? I was like, oh, sorry, Mom. I have a show in Paris tonight. I won't be able to make it. That was like his dream to be able to say that.
That's great, man. That's amazing. All right. So first full length comes out 2003, self-titled. Second one, 2004. We Did Not Know the Forest Spirit Made the Flowers Grow, and then Let It Bloom in 2005. What can you tell me about those three records? Like how's your songwriting evolving at this point? Like, what's cool, I think that you mentioned earlier, is that you guys did like from the get-go say, this is what we're doing. I think a lot of bands, it takes them maybe a record or two to realize that they're in it for the long haul. So as you're writing those 3 records, how is the band evolving? How are you evolving?
I mean, we're just staying on tour. Like when we got picked up by Bump Records, because that was like Bump Records is what got us into like most of the music we're into, like all the compilations they put out, like all the stuff Greg Shaw did. So we were all working at the Diner, and we sent our first single around to every label we could think of, all the, small labels, and Bump was the only one that got back to us. And that was, that was just huge. Like,
Yeah.
Iggy Pop had records on
Yeah.
Bump, and like Dead Boys and all this stuff. And Greg Shaw bought us a hotel room, and that I can't like explain. Like, that was just such a huge deal. Like, and it was 4 of us in a hotel room, but that was such a huge deal for us to get that. But yeah, we were just like, I would say like our songwriting really started picking up during Let It Bloom. Like I didn't write any songs on the first one. I tried to write a bunch. Second one, I wrote a couple, but you can tell somewhat, I did not know what I was doing at all. By Let It Bloom, we had Ian in the band.
Yeah.
Ian was also a few years older than us. Ian was in the Renegades. I forgot to mention that. And he was like the older guy that could buy beer, and like he had cool guitars, and he was kind of like a rock star to us. He was in this rockabilly band that we saw, and we thought he was super cool. And we like dared each other to ask him to be in the band. He said, yeah. And then Ian rejoined around Let It Bloom. And he knew how to like put songs together. And by that time, like it's really primitive, but like we kind of started to know what we were doing. It was the first time we were in a studio, which was this amazing studio. I can't remember the distillery in Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah.
That was the coolest studio ever. And the guy, Mike McHugh, that recorded that, he was like, he made like just, I think most of the In the Red records from around that era were recorded there. And that was just like, because we did not know the Forest Spirit, whatever it's called, that one, it sounds like we're trying to be lo-fi, but we were trying to make it sound amazing and awesome, but that's what came out. That was not intentional. But yeah, that was like the first real studio. And I think around then, that was the first time like we were actually getting credit. Like we had people in certain cities that would come to see us, like like the guy that owned the record store, and people in other bands. But Let It Bloom was the first time we had like people we didn't know coming to our shows. And like I think that was around the time we were all able to quit working at the Diner.
Yeah. So that was a big record for you guys. I didn't know it was done at the distillery. That's cool.
Yeah. You know that place?
Yeah. Absolutely, man. And then so that's dope, because that kind of sets in like, as the band progresses into Good, Bad, Not Evil, because I mean, I don't know, to me, that's obviously a big breakout record for you guys. That record.
Yeah, that was definitely our breakout record.
You guys are on Conan on that record. It's your first record with Vice, right?
Yeah.
So going into that record, obviously blows up, it's an amazing record. It's a great fucking record. What can you tell me about writing that record, that whole process of kind of signing with Vice? Because Vice at the time, was not the super massive multimedia outlet that they are now.
Yeah.
They were cool as shit. I mean, I always thought that was such a perfect pairing, you guys and Vice. I just thought it just made so much sense. So what are your memories about that time?
Well, we were touring a lot, we were going to Europe a bunch, and I started just staying over there because we didn't have to work. We were all still homeless, but we didn't have to go to like day jobs. By homeless, we were just like, I'd stay with friends. Like, it was cool homeless.
Yeah.
Homeless.
Rock and roll homeless.
Yeah. So we'd play in New York. Like, we'd drive up there almost every weekend, and we'd play like these Polish restaurants and stuff. And we were really into Vice at the time. Like, it was my favorite magazine, like all the like skateboarding and music I liked. And It was funny. Yeah, like you said, it's a totally different thing then. And I remember being like, man, if they had a label, like we'd be really good on this. It'd be cool. And then someone came when we were playing one of those Polish restaurants in New York. Someone from Vice came to interview us. And then like at the end, it was like, then it seemed like it was more than an interview. They were like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, like Sarush, who's, one of the founders of it. And then within like the next day or two, they asked us to come. They were like, oh, you should play this festival we're doing in Norway. It was in Tromsø, Norway, like up in the heart. So we went there and we were like, oh, cool. We're going to do this interview with Vice and they're going to take us to Norway. And because I would like, at that time, I was like, I want to be in the Red forever. Cause that was my favorite label. And then on that trip to Norway, Sarush asked to sign us. And so we were like, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And it moved really fast. Like that was a really awesome, like fun part of my life because like the beginning of the year, I didn't know how I was going to pay for my next meal. And I was like working. Yeah, I think we got paid like $6.25 back then at the diner. And we'd have to save up to go on tour. You'd work a month, save up, go on tour, lose everything. And then all of a sudden by like the end of that year or whatever, we're signing with Vice, which is cool. And, we missed the era. We just missed that era of like big, like advances and all that stuff. But it was still like we could go to a studio. Actually, we recorded at a really budget studio in Atlanta. I think they were bummed about that. Like they wanted us to get a producer and go to like a real studio. And we were really naive back then. We were like, I didn't know what a producer was. I remember like asking people, like, I didn't know what a producer did. So we just kind of recorded at our buddy's house. It was like a kind of proper studio, but not as proper as like the distillery.
Were you guys aware of like, okay, like we don't want to change anything, like you're saying, you don't even fucking know what a producer is. It's like, you don't care because the band is doing what the band's doing and you're happy and you're stoked and it's great. Were you aware of like, not wanting to change for anybody or anything at that time and just keep going the way you guys wanted to do it?
Yeah, well, I don't even think we were ever even that conscious to like even think that was a thing to do.
Gotcha.
That never really occurred to us. Luckily, Vice always let us do whatever we wanted. I don't think even if we would have tried to do something else, we would. I mean, maybe it would have been hilarious, but that just like wasn't in us. We just did whatever. I think that's why they liked us, and that's why the pairing worked.
Yeah.
I don't think it could have worked like another way. Especially back then, we used to all have oppositional defiance disorder. So if someone told us to do something, we wanted to do the opposite.
Yeah, I ran into you guys a couple times in that era of your ODD era. And
y'all used to stay at the Columbia Hotel too, right?
Dude,
I remember that guy. Y'all called him like Chuckles or something. The guy that ran the front desk that hated parties.
Dude, that hotel bar was the greatest, dude.
Yeah.
It was so great. And that was an awesome time of just absolutely zero fucks and no rules.
That's how we rolled back then.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. And as the record's kind of taken off, was this kind of your time as a band to kind of feel, that moment where things are changing a little bit and shows are getting bigger, people are more hyped, you're in magazines, you're doing all that stuff. What was kind of that time like for you guys as you're going through it?
I mean, luckily it happened. If that would have all happened like right out of high school, that might have been super weird. But by that time, we've been touring for almost a decade. I went on my first tour when I was 16, and by that time I was probably like 20. That was like 8 years into the band, so it was such a steady like climb. Like it was normal to play shows in front of a bunch of people. It just like kept gaining steam little by little. Like I think it would be, especially around that time, because we basically lived in England then, because we had a UK management company, and how the music business is over there. It's just like every month there's like this big band. It seems like they come from that seems like it'd be weird. Like you go from playing to
Yeah,
know
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're on this huge thing. Like we had a lot of time to practice and be around that, and like not practice like technically, but be comfortable being on stage and doing our thing. Like we were comfortable with who we were by then, and it was just super fun. Like it was. I'm really glad I spent my 20s like doing that, because that's the only time in my life I would have ever been able to like maintain that schedule and party like that. And there's only a little window when you can do that.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So 2 million thousand comes out in 2009. What are some thoughts on that record? What was that process like?
Well, again, we didn't know by this time. We knew what a producer was, but Vice kept wanting us to get a producer, and we were just like I told you, if you tell us to do something, we were like, nah. So we like rented out this big warehouse, like train depot thing in Atlanta, because up until recently, Atlanta was a very, very cheap city. And so we rented out this big thing, and we bought an entire recording studio from this Greek guy. He was like because we used to all work for Greeks at the diner. And there was this one like rich kid, and he decided he wanted to be a record producer. So his parents just bought him everything. And then he decided he didn't want to be it. So they sold it to us on the cheap. So we tried to build our own studio. And our plan was to have like all the bands in Atlanta practice there, and we'd have like our own practice space. And we had a record label, Die Slaughterhouse at the time. We'd have our office there. We made the record. The band's practicing there. No one ever paid us for that. In fact, we got robbed by a band of junkies there. Got our stuff back. Us and Deer Hunter got our equipment stolen, and we found it. But it was kind of a shit show, but I'm glad we did it. The label and our management at the time were kind of bummed about it, because like after Good, Bad, Not Evil, I think they were, they wanted us to have a producer and have this big thing, but it was like our version. I like that record, but
Yeah.
it's kind of weirder. And, I remember being in the offices in London, like, check this out. And like, we played it, and they're kind of like, all right, well, maybe that one could be a single. Like they were hitting like it was not what they wanted. But I liked the record. I thought it was cool. It was fun having that warehouse thing. It was like, it would have been, if we could have had something like that. I'm at the point in my life now where I could manage something like that. But back then, dude, we could not have nice things at that time in my life. I was like 25.
Yeah, we did somewhat of a similar thing, like around our third record. And when we started the Mariachi Band, we bought like a studio in the Valley. And Brad and I, our bass player, was living there for a minute, and it was like, you're waking up in a business park, and you got, friends coming in and out. It was, it's like I think it's like a goal for a lot of bands to be able to have your own studio and make your own records. And, if you get to have that kind of chapter, it's really, really cool. And I think, like you're saying, it kind of happens when it happens for most bands. I think it happens when they aren't really like ready to sustain it.
Yeah. It was not sustainable.
Are any of the guys recording guys in the band, or is it always just kind of like
Oakley's like the gearhead guy, and he's like audio, he built his, so we kind of have that again now, and it's cool. It's up at Oakley's property.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
New York. So and he's able to do that. I love recording. It's just not really I'm not passionate enough about it to really learn like the thing. Like I'd rather learn how to be a woodworker and like work on carpentry and stuff like that. I love recording. But also I think I have like a shitty ear. I like crappy stuff, and most people don't like crappy stuff.
Yeah. But you're in that special spot where, I think you have an elevated taste for crap. So some people will pay they'll pay a pretty penny for that, because a lot of people, I think the Black Lips is one of those types of bands too, that is often imitated and never duplicated. It's like, it's just one of those things that it's something that you guys have that is just special, so, but I get what you're saying about not being a gearhead, you know what I mean? Like, it's like it's a certain type that wants to going down the gear wormholes and fucking read instruction manuals and patch shit and fucking, you know what I mean?
It's just, you have to have a passion. I really dig people that are into that kind of stuff. But it's just something like Ian was our old guitar player. He was really like that. You always need at least one guy like that.
one guy in the
band. Because that obviously you want someone that knows your trade. That's just not me. I'm just not as passionate about it.
2011, you finally say yes to a producer.
Yeah, and that was actually us, like, kind of joke. Like, we were kind of like fucking with Vice. And as I say all this, everyone that we worked with at Vice at the time were awesome. They were like our
yeah, of course.
So but we were always fun. We're like, all right, we'll get a producer. So I remember like drawing up this list with Dr. Dre, like, of people that we were like, all right, if we're gonna work with a producer, so we just listed basically all the biggest name producers we could think of. Like, thinking, and my line of thinking was they'd be like, oh, haha, I see what you're doing, and we would just do it without a producer again. But they actually called Mark Ronson because I guess he had done something with them, and he said yes, which was totally, like, I was completely surprised when, like, I thought they were fucking with me. And they said, like, Mark Ronson wants to do it. I was like, no, this is a joke. Because it was like, I wish I still had the list, but I remember Dr. Dre being the first one that was on it.
What was Mark Ronson like in the studio? I mean, Arabian Mountain is, it's an awesome record, man. I mean, I don't know where you sit with it, but as a fan of the band, I really dig that record a lot. What was that recording process like?
That was awesome. It was like, I learned a lot doing that session, because usually, like, before that, I would kind of just like bang out a song. I didn't really know much about structure or arrangements at all. That, like, stuff like that had never occurred to me. Mark kind of piqued my interest in a lot of like different ways of doing, like, proper ways of recording. Like, I'd never really gotten into recording before, but it was like him and some of the guys that were affiliated with like Daptones and stuff like that were in there. And I was like, I got really interested in that, like the process of like writing and arranging songs, and like getting him, like, getting a unique sound on every song, like just stuff I'd never even thought of before. Because for me, it was just like, all right, verse, chorus, first, and then put it out there, which is, I like when music's made like that. But Mark really kind of like, it like opened up this whole new world of looking at how to like make songs or record things. So that was really awesome recording with him. And we did it at a pretty small place in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Can't remember the name of it. So it wasn't like this super big fancy studio. It was just, he's a master of his craft. There's a reason why he's so successful, because a lot of those songs we came in with, like, my demos were like, I'm surprised he agreed to, because the way I would, present songs, it sounded really bad. Like, it was just, sometimes it would be me just whistling into a phone. I don't even know if I had iPhones back then. The demos did not sound good. It was enough to be like, that's how it's supposed to go. But
it's really cool when you get the opportunity to work, with a producer that's, that's more than an engineer. That's like a song structure, like a songwriter, like someone who makes you really, think differently about, how you approach writing a song. That's always a really cool kind of wormhole to go down as an artist. It's really, really cool. You got to do that with him.
I had never thought about a third part. I didn't know there could be a third part in a song. And just like coaching me on my vocals, and like he brought in, we wanted to have theremin on it, but it's so hard to make a good theremin sound. So he had an idea to bring in this saw. He knew a saw player, and anyone can do a saw, but this guy, he came in and he's like, no, his name was Dale Stuckenbrook. I think that was his name.
Great.
There's like he was telling me there's like 3 people on the planet that can hit a perfect note on saw. There's him, there's a woman in China, but he does like orchestra pit for like Broadway plays. No one, apparently it's super hard to hit a perfect note. So he was like he's the best saw player alive. And that's how we got a lot of those sounds. Like Q-Tip came in, and like I'm really uncomfortable singing, especially in the studio sometimes. So I'd make everyone leave. Like Q-Tip was in there, like, no man, you should sing it like this. Like that was a pretty wild night. I was like, that seemed unreal. We almost killed Mark, and we had to call his mom to pick him up and take him to the hospital.
What? How did that happen?
Because we had this song called Raw Meat, and we actually like used meat on the recording, but we have like a penchant for raw. Like I really love raw food, like especially like meat, like tartare, like anything I can eat raw. I like a lot. So we went out to this Japanese place, and we all ate raw. We all ordered raw liver, and I guess we all got really sick. But Mark, we got in the studio the next day, and like, you know, when you walk in a room and it just smells like sick, like someone's excreting toxins from their body. Like he was like on the sofa, just green, and he had like 106 or 7 degree temperature. It was like really bad, like bad to the point where like we called his mom. We're like, what should we do? And he had to go to the emergency room. I think she came to pick him up at the studio, so he missed it. We actually had to finish the record in Atlanta because we lost a few days at the tail end of that recording process.
I love that you called his mom. That's great.
I don't want to send him to the hospital if it's like frivolous. Make sure like. So
how does Black Lips approach lyrics? Like, do you guys write them together? Whoever writes the song write the lyrics, or how does that shake out?
Most of the time it's like everyone kind of writes on their own. In the very beginning, we'd like sit around because when you're younger, we all lived together for years, and we were like around each other all the time. You don't care about privacy back then. As you know that was as you get older, you spend less and less time together. I mean, musically, we still, we work that out together, but lyrics tend to be like whoever writes the song. I still, like, to this day, like, I don't know how I write lyrics. It's really hard. Everything I write, I'm like, oh, that sounds corny. That's that's the hardest part for me is, I think I tend to overthink it.
I think it's natural to have those moments for sure when you're writing, like you're like, okay, this seems cool when I wrote it, but now that I'm thinking back about it, maybe it's a little corny, maybe it's a little cheesy. What do you guys think about it? Is there like a process like that where, people be like, no, man, that's cool?
Yeah, I feel comfortable enough around them, or I, be like, please, it's better just to tell me now as opposed to like, having this forever. So just tell me, I'm not going to get my feelings hurt. Like, it's no big deal. A lot of times you can tell, like, one of the worst things about recording is like hearing your voice in playback with like no music behind it. That's like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's tough. When you're recording vocals, you like to do it kind of, without people in the studio, or it's weird. It's crazy now. It's almost, because recording in the studio, especially vocals, man, it can be a head fuck, dude. It could be such a fucking mind fuck. And a lot of times it is so much easier to do it on your own, because I think, at the end of the day, what a good take is from you and what's not. But, when you do have a producer, like Mark Ronson, obviously he's going to want to be involved in the vocal process. So after that record, are you still kind of up and down on recording vocals? Are you confident with it now, or where are you at with the process?
Oh, I'm still really uncomfortable with it. Luckily now, though, I know how to at least record on my computer. I've been able to do that for a few years. And like, when I'm like alone, I can get all like, because I don't want to work out like how I'm going to sing it. Like, oh, do I do monster voice? Like, it's a real
monster voice. What?
I just remember one time I was getting really frustrated with how to sing a song, and I was in a real bad mood. And I was just like, everything I do sucks. I'm just gonna sing like a Cookie Monster take, and like whoever was engineering at the time wouldn't emote at all or say anything. Like, yeah, that's fine. Like, just tell me It's bad or good. All right, I'm gonna do Cookie Monster voice. So I would just sing it like that. It was kind of like a little temper tantrum, but at least when I'm by myself, I can try it out a lot of ways, at least to where I can kind of get it.
Yeah, you can you can get through the awkward takes of like finding where you want to sing it at and all that stuff. You know, it's like that's one of the rad things about the last 5 years or whatever it is with recording is being able to have like a pretty minimal setup at home to just be able to demo stuff.
Yeah, that's what I have like a mini studio that's like I can get the basics down. But one huge thing about like a good producer is making you feel comfortable, and like
the
last few people we've worked with, like Mark especially, like just super professional and just makes me feel like super comfortable, like he's my coach. Well, basically this is like wants me to get a good take and do it, so I'm like, all right, yeah, we're like in this together. So like bouncing it off like a producer, like I have to feel really comfortable around, and so far I felt comfortable around every producer, so that's been good.
Yeah, that's dope, man. That's dope. So Underneath the Rainbow 2014, was that Black Keys dude? Did he work on
it was
that?
Patrick. Yeah, Patrick.
Awesome. Is he a cool dude? I've always heard he's a rad guy.
Yeah, he's super funny, super cool. Still keep in touch with him a bit. Yeah, he's great. He's like, super supportive, and we were actually, our first record was on the same label as them. Same company, Alive and Bump are the same.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, working with Patrick was really good. He's another guy because he's just kind of like a buddy in there. That was actually at a really fancy studio. That might have been the fanciest studio I've ever been in.
Where was that one at?
It was in Nashville. I think it was called Blackbird.
Okay.
That's where I think like Justin Bieber and stuff recorded. It's like, it's one of those Nashville studios, and that was cool. They had like PlayStation, and people would bring you sandwiches.
How do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel about being like comfortable creatively versus uncomfortable creatively? What do you think makes the best art?
I think uncomfortable for sure. I mean, but I'm biased because we've always kind of done things uncomfortably. But if you get too cushy, no, I mean, actually, there's a best of both worlds. There's definitely a best. There's pros and cons to each one. Like I like the stuff, the uncomfortability and like struggle, the stuff that comes out of that. There's a certain thing, but also, you sacrifice a lot when you do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about. So the one we did after Underneath the Rainbow with Patrick. Honestly, I don't remember a lot of the recording of that record.
Satan's Graffiti?
No, of Underneath the Rainbow. I don't
okay, gotcha.
A lot of that. I think it was just because it was a super fancy studio. Everything went pretty smooth. Patrick was like a real cool guy. It's like,
yeah.
That one was cool. But as far as like the most comfortable recording environment was when we did Satan's Graffiti. That was like the best, like creative, comfortable environment I've ever been in. And that's where like the plus side of like being comfortable. And that was the first time we ever had time, and like the most time. We've always been under like a huge crunch with like either we couldn't afford we're on a really tight budget, or we have a label deadline, or just a ton of tours stacked, or you have to like, oh, if you don't get this done, then this, and this won't happen. Satan's Graffiti, like we were almost not going to be a band anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, because is that where Joe left?
Yeah, Joe and Ian.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. Ian left. I mean, they both left pretty amicably, but like Ian got married, and he was just kind of like, I think he just didn't want to tour that much anymore.
Yeah.
And then Joe kind of the same. Like, he really didn't want to go. It was just a little bit of creative differences, and he like didn't enjoy like the schedule as much. He was kind of like,
Yeah,
Joe was
yeah,
never
yeah.
super social, and you know, he's just around tons of people all the time. He was. I mean, I don't even want to speak for why he left, but again, that one was amicably. I think we all cried, like hugged.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a big
It was like
moment,
it
you
was
know?
a big deal just because Joe and me went to like elementary school and middle school and high school together and just been through so
Yeah.
much together. So it was tough, but yeah, there was no like fight. Like I'm glad with both of them it ended like pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, it's rough, dude. I mean, it's like anytime you have, and Joe's an original member, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's tough, dude. You know what I mean? I mean, that's hard. And it's like obviously you got relationships with both guys, but you know, coming up on 20 years of the band, or even longer for you guys since 1999, you want it to be perfect, you know what I mean? But it's never going to be perfect. And the best you can hope for is if you know, members, because it sucks having to like change members. It's like the most dreadful thing in the world. Like no band ever really wants to do that unless the guy's like a total dick, and then it's like whatever, you know. But when it's not like that and it's just a change of like, you know, a change of life type shit, it sucks, man.
You know, honestly, it's a miracle if any band stays together for more than like a year or two.
Yeah.
I'm like grateful that we had that lineup for like 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, pretty like we were, you know, most of those years we were touring like 7, 8 months out of the year, sometimes more. So it was like, yeah, that was a good run with that, but we kind of had to regroup after. But by that point, we had Jack had joined the band, who was
Yeah.
it was his second time now. He was on the second record. He joined after Ben passed. He was Ben's best friend. So we grew up with him. So it was like me, Cole, and Jack all together. And we didn't really know it was never really in the cards to quit. It was just kind of like you know, those two dudes leaving almost back to back. It was like, shit, like we had to regroup. I didn't know what we were going to do.
Yeah.
I guess you could say like Sean Lennon kind of saved like the band at that point. It was like kind of crazy how that worked out. We actually had met Sean through Mark Ronson when we were recording that record with him. Sean came in the studio and I think played theremin on the record, or at least tried to. I'm not sure if his takes made it on there or not. But and we just kind of kept in touch with him, and the four of us showed up there, and I don't think we told Sean that there was no Joe anymore, so we just showed up without a drummer. And I was kind of like asked, I was like, so maybe you could play drums on the record, but he doesn't play drums. It was serendipitous, I think, because Oakley, our drummer now, just a few days before we got there, he quit music entirely. He like had a string of like bands that were good, but I guess, you know, didn't really go anywhere. So he retired from music and moved like 30 or 40 minutes away from Sean to like be a farmer, and was just living on this farm. He's like, oh yeah, I think Oakley moved somewhere around here, and called him. And Oakley said that was the first call he got on his landline. We asked him to come play drums. And so he was retired for only like a few days, and we brought him out of retirement.
Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like, you know, I'm saying like that gave us like kind of a new lease on life, because there was no, you know, he lives like real secluded place in the mountains, and we could stay on the property. The studio's on the property, so we just like, you know, no time limit. And that was like, as far as like being able to be creative, like I didn't have my phone on me or my wallet for like 2 months. Like didn't know what day it was. We could just wake up and go to the studio. The engineer lived in the studio, so it was just
that's
like
awesome.
I've never had freedom like that. And you were like, we never went to town or anything. I don't think there's even a town around there. So we're just on his property for like 2 months straight. And that was cool. So like that's like the cool kind of comfort you get, where you can be super creative, because we didn't have anything else to do. I don't think we had any tours lined up.
Yeah, man.
And so it was just like totally be able to focus on that. So that was amazing. And that really, and we kind of like, you know, it was really hard losing Joe and Ian, but you know, we had been doing it so much and like going so hard at it. It almost like became a new band at that point with like Zoomy and Oakley in the band. And
Yeah.
it was kind of like a different, like almost.
Yeah, it's an important record, man. It's an important record for you guys. You know, I think to, you know, obviously just to get through and to make, because it is like a reestablishing, you know, of the band. And it's like, I know kind of getting through, you know, those moments is tough, but being able to, you know, we're so lucky, you know, as artists to have, you know, outlets for all those moments in life that challenge you. You know, you can throw yourself into a record and create music, you know. So it's a really, really cool thing. And you know, it's a really cool record too. I dig that record, man.
Right.
Yeah. And then so Sing in a World That's Falling Apart 2020, you know, awesome video with Zoomy, Get It On Time. And that record obviously comes into the pandemic and the fucking world goes to shit, you know. So it's like, how did you guys navigate that time, you know, as a band? Was it just like, this is, you know, it is what it is?
We actually ended in Atlanta. We were supposed to be heading to South by Southwest, but like March 17th, we did like 2 nights at this club in Atlanta, and we were going to start driving to Texas. And then both of our shows in Atlanta sold out. Like the first night, I was like, this doesn't really look that sold out. And then the second night, you're like, how the hell is this sold out? Because I didn't think the whole pandemic thing was real. I remember one of my friends, like, I'm not coming to the show. There's like a sickness going around. I was like, are you serious? And then it got like super real, real fast. I was like, holy shit, what's happening? And so like, I was moving to LA like I was supposed to be moving to LA that week. And so we all just went home. The rest of the band drove my van from Atlanta to California. I flew with this girl I was dating at the time. And then we got to LA, and I was like, you know, it was kind of rowdy at the grocery store. And then, you know, our managers, I just realized like everything's canceled. Our whole tour, our whole year was booked because the record had just come out. So we decided to, I was like, well, I'm not going to be able to tour. And she was in entertainment as well. So her industry got shut down. So I went to work for her dad at a hardware store in Long Island. So I was like, I'll just get to work. And I lived in Marfa, Texas for a while, like remodeling houses. Then we spent like 3 months up at Oakley's and the Catskills. So it was like, I don't know, it was kind of a cool, it feels fucked up saying the pandemic was cool. I had to use that time to like, do something.
Dude, I had that effect on a lot of people, dude. It was a really necessary time for people to reset and like take inventory and deal with some shit. And that, you know, that's a positive thing, dude. You know, I mean, that's a fucking great thing. And also, I mean, there was crazy shit going on with the band too. The fucking, you know, Zoomy and Gucci and all that shit, man. I mean, was, you know, that was cool shit. It's really funny how, you know, things just, you know, they just come back around to the Black Lips, dude. It's pretty amazing. You know, what you guys have built is really special, man. And it's really cool to see, you know, kind of things, you know, come and go. You know how music is. It comes around. Garage rock, it's popular, then it's not, and it all comes back around. But you guys have just had a lot of really cool, you know, things that have come back around and just acknowledged, you know, the spirit of the band, which I think is really cool. And is there truth that there's a movie being made?
No, it tricked me for a second though. It was on April Fool's Day.
Dude, I believed it, dude.
We tricked a bunch of people. Like one of my friends, like the girl that plays keyboard in Florence and the Machine, like called me like the day that came out, was like, can I do the music or the soundtrack of the movie? I didn't know what she was talking about at the time, and that was a pretty good one because it even like got me. I don't do any of our social media, so. But a lot of things, I don't know if it's that far off. Maybe it could happen.
No, I don't think it, because, well, you know, and I'm not going to name names here, but there's a lot of motherfuckers from our era that are like now deciding that they need to make movies about themselves or documentaries about themselves or whatever. And a lot of the times it's like, it's whack. But when I saw that thing, I was like, that makes sense to me, you know, because another thing that I just love about you guys is that it's real, man. And it's legitimate, and you guys live it and breathe it. And the band is something that has always maintained its integrity and style and sound kind of throughout everything that you've been through. So I bid on that one. I thought it made sense. I thought it could be cool, man.
Years ago, we were supposed to play this fictional band in a movie. It got like funding, and we were doing like table reads and all this stuff. But then like, I remember we saw like a little trailer they made of all. I'm not an actor. That's like one thing. Like, I don't think I'm
Full disclosure.
Yeah. But we kind of like, I got like cold feet. It was like right around when we were like first starting to do big stuff with Vice. And I was like, oh, this could be, we were supposed to play like a band that was like kind of like the Replacements or something, but kind of us. It was weird. And I have a lot of like rock biopics. I don't know if it's because they do turn out corny, or it's just like, since I know that world so much, I'm like, that's not how.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, if like a dude that's in the army watches a war movie, I wonder if they call like bullshit on this.
Yeah. For sure, man. All right. Jared, I don't want to take too much more of your time, man. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. I got a couple random questions for you just to end the conversation here. First off, did major labels ever come calling for the Black Lips?
No, but Vice was technically a major label for a while. I think we were technically on Atlantic and Warner at one point.
Nice.
But no one came knocking. No.
What label are you on now?
Fire.
Awesome.
Vice isn't a label anymore.
Yeah. If there was a secret to the longevity of the Black Lips, what would you say it is?
Starting young and not having a plan B.
Yeah, no parachute.
Yeah.
Nice, man. All right, what do you love about being in a band?
I guess like just the travel and the people that I've met, like relationships, because there's no other way I would have met all these people.
Awesome. What do you hate about being in a band?
Like probably airports, like the travel. I love the travel, but I hate like getting there.
You guys, another thing that's cool that you guys have done is, touring in places that, a lot of bands don't bother going. You guys did the infamous India tour.
Yeah.
and then the Middle East. What was the Middle East like, dude?
I mean, that was pretty wild. I booked my own show. I booked our own show in Iraq, and it wasn't like on a military base. I booked that through like Facebook. I can't remember if it was MySpace or Facebook back then, but yeah, we just booked it from like writing to kids on the internet. It was kind of like how we used to book our first tours, but we did it in the Middle East. It was pretty wild. I mean, honestly, all the places like Egypt, aside from like once you were in the club and at the show, it didn't seem like, it seemed like a show anywhere else. The only place where we were playing where you're like, holy shit, like Iraq was definitely like, because we were supposed to have like a normal show because I like kind of in a park or something, but the promoter, they saw like some videos that, nudity and stuff. So they canceled it, but we still had plane tickets there. So we found some film student that booked us at a community center, and we didn't have equipment. So like Joe was playing like boxes and a suitcase, and we just plugged like straight into like the monitor, like a really shitty monitor. And like the crowd, like some teenagers, I guess, were kind of into us, but it was like families, like women, like in full burqa and everything. It was like,
damn.
It was like, that was the only one that was odd. But like in Egypt, we were like tons of skateboard kids and like kids into punk rock, and it was like Egyptian kids. It was really cool. I mean, it was super hard to do. Like it was hard to pull off. So we had to postpone it a year because initially Syria was going to be kind of our home base, because that was where we were booking all the shows, and the bands we knew were in Damascus. But then that was like right when the Civil War popped off.
Yeah.
And we're like, I mean, I'm super glad we did it. We've gone back to a couple places, but yeah, I still want to do. I think we're going to, like, right now I'm working on doing some stuff in Vietnam and Cambodia. We've been to Thailand. I kind of want to just place the, like, being able to tour. It's like there's all these places that I want to go, and it's like if you get to play there, then you get to hang out with people that you would hang out with if you grew up there anyway. So it's like kind of the perfect way to travel.
Yeah, man. I mean, it seems super cool. I mean, there's so many places that we haven't been able to play yet. And I think a lot of times, you usually hear about if it's a place you really don't usually go to, like Iraq or something like that. It's usually a military base. It's usually an artist like fucking Bruce Springsteen or something like that doing something for the troops, which is awesome. But it's not anything like, like ground floor, like raw club, or just a band going over there and saying, fuck it, like you're saying, you booked the show on fucking Facebook or whatever it was, So I always thought that was something really cool you guys did, because you realize how important music is in every corner of the world, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just about the US or, mainland Europe or the UK or Canada, whatever. There's so many places, that music, has the ability to get to. So as a band, making it kind of a mission to try to get to those places, I always thought that was something really cool that you guys did.
Yeah, it was, I mean, well worth it. It was, yeah, it's super fun.
Right on, man. All right, last question here. Growing up in the church, Black Lips, 10th studio album on the way, all this crazy shit that you've been through in music and outside of music. At this point, what do you think the meaning of life is?
Oh, man. I think it's like not material stuff. I think it's about family and friends, just being kind to people and helping others. Like, that's kind of like the meaning of life.
Yeah, man.
Still like working on a lot of this stuff, but like, all the stuff I've done in the band is cool, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the most important thing I think is just, I don't know, just trying to be good and do good to those you love and those around you.
Yeah, man. I agree with that 100%, Jared. Awesome, dude. It was really cool talking with you, man.
It's great to see you.
Big fan of the band, as you know, and hopefully our paths cross sooner than later. And stoked for the new record. And take care of yourself, my man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks again for having me, and I'm sure we'll cross paths soon.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, peace.
All right, night.
Oh yeah, that's a wrap on episode 35 of the Sailor Jerry podcast. As always, huge amounts of gratitude and respect to our guests, the one and only Jared Swilley of the Black Lips. Jared, thank you so much for your time, my man. Really appreciate the conversation as always. And, I'm a big fan of the Black Lips. I got a lot of respect for what they've done over the years. And so it was really cool talking with Jared. He's someone I could probably talk to for, quite a long time at length about everything that the band has done, because there's a lot of crazy shit wrapped up in there. So thank you, Jared, for your time, my man. Appreciate you. You can follow Jared at Jared Swilley on Instagram. Of course, you can follow the Black Lips on Instagram. Pretty sure they got a Facebook, all that good stuff too. Follow me at 213MattMan. Follow Sailor Jerry at Sailor Jerry, of course. Duh. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Sailor Jerry spiced rum is made the old school way. 92 proof, bold and smooth as hell. Appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. Be sure and follow, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. It really, really helps. and shoot me a message. Let me know who you want to see or hear on the podcast, and we'll make it happen. All right. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you in 14 days. Peace.